Peter and Praise had been the perfect couple for as long as anyone could remember. They had grown up in the same neighborhood in Lagos, Nigeria, and met in school. They were both smart, beautiful, and had big dreams for their futures. They had been together for years and everyone knew that they were destined to marry. But there was something else, something that only Peter and Praise knew.
Through the sands and the sun's warm embrace, whispers of tales that time cannot erase. A duggo sings where the rivers roam. Stories of wonder will call you home. From the drum beats loud to the stars so bright, her voice rises bold in the heart of the night. Every story an adventure untold, a journey crafted in courage and gold. Africa tales by a doggo she sings.
Hello everyone, my name is Adugo and you're watching the African Tales channel by Adugo. Before we dive into today's video, please kindly click under the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you will be notified whenever I upload a new video. Now, let's get into the story. Peter loved Praise deeply. Every time he looked at her, his heart would skip a beat. Praise too loved him. They shared everything, their hopes, their fears, their laughter, and even their tears. They had been through it all together, and their bond was unbreakable. Everyone could see how happy they made each other. Praise's mother, Anita, was a kind woman who had raised Praise all by herself. She was proud of her daughter's achievement and always told Praise that she had raised her to be strong and independent. But Praise knew she could always count on her mother for support. Peter had been nervous when he first met Anita. He had always respected her, but when he knew he wanted to marry Praise, it was a big step. Over time, he grew close to Anita, and she became like a second mother to him. He introduced Praise to his own family, and they all supported their love. Everything was going perfectly. Peter saved up money, worked extra hours, and started planning the wedding. He paid for the wedding hall, the decorations, and even the catering. It seemed like everything was falling into place, and soon he would marry the woman he loved more than anything in the world. Then, a few days before the wedding, something strange happened. Praise came to Peter with tears in her eyes. Her hands trembled as she spoke. "Peter, I am not ready. I can't marry you yet." Peter froze. He didn't understand. "What do you mean? We've been planning this for months. The wedding is in a few days." "I know, Peter, but I am not ready for marriage. I need more time," she said, her voice barely a whisper. Peter's heart shattered. He couldn't believe it. All the dreams he had built with Praise, all the hopes he had for their future, were suddenly crumbling. He didn't know what to say or what to do. With a broken heart, Peter decided to go to Praise's mother, Anita. He needed to talk to someone who understood him. Anita had always been kind and understanding. Maybe she could help him make sense of everything. When Peter explained what had happened, Anita's face was filled with concern. "Peter, I am so sorry. Praise is a young woman and sometimes she doesn't know what she truly wants. But I promise you, I will talk to her. Let me see if I can help." Peter left Anita's house that day, still confused and hurt. He waited for her to speak to Praise. Days passed and Peter had nothing. Finally, Anita called him. "Peter, I have spoken to Praise, but she has made up her mind. She's not ready to marry yet." Peter felt as if the ground beneath him had disappeared. Praise, the woman he loved, the woman he had planned his entire future with, had just turned her back on him. Months went by. Peter's heart was still broken. He tried to move on, but every time he thought about Praise, the pain returned. he decided to give love another chance. And so, he met Chika, a beautiful and kind woman. She was warm and understanding, and for a while, Peter forgot the pain that had once consumed him. But then, when things seemed to be going well with Chika, trouble began to stir. They had a fight. It was over something small, but soon, the small things became bigger, and the relationship began to fall apart. Peter tried everything he could to save it, but in the end, the relationship ended, leaving him once again broken and alone. Peter had nowhere to go, no one to turn to but one person, Anita. He found himself back at her house, telling her everything that had happened. Anita listened patiently, her eyes full of compassion. "Peter, you are a good man. You've been through so much. Don't let this hurt you too much. You deserve someone who truly appreciates you." Her words comforted him, and Peter began to feel something strange. He was growing close to Anita. It wasn't just the comfort she gave him, it was something more. He admired her strength and her wisdom. She was always there when he needed her, and there was a kindness in her eyes that made him feel safe. Days turned into weeks, and Peter continued visiting Anita. They talked, laughed, and shared stories. It felt good to have someone to talk to. But then, something unexpected happened. Peter began to feel more than just gratitude for Anita. He realized he was falling in love with her. Anita too seemed to be growing closer to Peter. She noticed the way he looked at her when they spoke, and she felt a warmth she hadn't felt in years. Anita had been alone for a long time, and now Peter made her feel special again. She didn't know when it happened, but she too had fallen in love with him. The two of them began to secretly date, keeping their relationship hidden from praise. But as time passed, things became more complicated. Peter was in love with his ex-girlfriend's mother. It felt like a betrayal, and yet it felt so right. One evening, Anita discovered that she was pregnant. The news shocked her, and she wasn't sure how to tell Peter or pray. But deep down, she knew that this was the beginning of something new, a twist in the story that no one had seen coming. Meanwhile, Praise began to notice changes. She found out about Peter and Anita's relationship, and her heart broke all over again. Her ex-boyfriend was now dating her mother, the one person who had always been there for her. She didn't know what to do or how to feel. Peter, on the other hand, was madly in love with Anita. Nothing else mattered to him. He had no intention of giving up on their love, no matter how difficult things became. As the tension built between them, Praise found herself torn between anger, betrayal, and confusion. The man she had once loved was now with her mother, and she couldn't escape the overwhelming emotions that flooded her heart. Praise was angry. She couldn't believe what she had just discovered. Her heart was torn apart as she thought about Peter, the man she had once loved, now being with her mother. It felt like betrayal on a level she couldn't even comprehend. Anita, the woman who had raised her, who had always been there for her, was now with the man she thought she would spend the rest of her life with. How could they do this to her? Days passed, and Praise's feelings only grew more complicated. On one hand, she felt a deep sense of loss, losing Peter, the love of her life. On the other hand, she felt a strange mix of betrayal and confusion, unsure of how to handle the situation. She could hardly look at her mother without feeling the weight of what had happened. Anita tried to reach out to Praise, but the young woman refused to speak to her. Praise wouldn't return her calls and would avoid her in the house. Anita's heart broke for her daughter, but she also felt that her love for Peter was real. She couldn't deny what had grown between them. The connection was too strong to ignore. Anita decided to give Praise some space, hoping that one day she would understand. But deep down, she knew that the path ahead would not be easy. Peter too was struggling. He had never intended for things to turn out this way. He had loved Praise with all his heart, but now he found himself deeply in love with Anita. It wasn't something he had planned, nor was it something he had wanted, but life had a strange way of leading him to this moment. He felt guilty for hurting Praise, and his heart ached every time he thought about her. But the more he spent time with Anita, the more he realized that his love for her was real. And now, with the news of Anita's pregnancy, Peter knew that their lives were about to change forever. But how would Praise react when she found out? Would she ever forgive him? And what would happen to this relationship with Anita now that they were going to be parents? These were the questions that kept Peter awake at night. But he knew one thing for sure. He couldn't go back. He loved Anita and nothing would change that. A few weeks later, Peter couldn't take it any longer. He knew he had to face Praise, to explain everything to her. He had to tell her about Anita's pregnancy, about the love that had blossomed between them, and about the new chapter that was about to begin in their lives. He made his way to Anita's house, where he knew Praise would be visiting. The moment he stepped inside, he could feel the tension in the air. Praise was sitting in the living room. She refused to look at him. Peter took a deep breath and approached her slowly. "Praise," he said softly, "I know you are angry, and I understand why, but I need you to hear me out." Praise stood up abruptly. "What's there to hear, Peter? You and my mother, you left me at the altar and now you are dating my mom? How could you do this to me?" Her voice shook with emotion. Peter felt a lump in his throat. He had rehearsed this conversation 1,000 times in his mind. But now that he was facing Praise, it was harder than ever imagined. "I never meant to hurt you, Praise. I loved you, you know that. But sometimes life doesn't work out the way we plan. I didn't expect to fall in love with your mom, but I did, and I can't change that." Praise's face turned pale. "So what now? What about me? What about everything we had? It was all a lie?" she asked, her voice breaking. Peter shook his head. "No, Praise, it wasn't a lie, but life changed. Things changed. I never wanted to hurt you, but I can't turn my back on what I feel for Anita. I can't undo what's happened." Tears welled up in Praise's eyes. She turned away, unable to look at him anymore. "I don't know if I can ever forgive you for this. You were supposed to be my future, Peter. Now I don't know who I am anymore." Peter reached out to her, but she backed away. "I am sorry, Praise. I am really sorry," he whispered. Before he could say another word, Praise ran out of the house, leaving Peter standing there, helpless and heartbroken. As the days passed, the tension between the three of them only grew. Praise refused to speak to either Peter or Anita. She couldn't understand how things had gotten so complicated. She had loved Peter with everything she had, and now she was left with nothing but a broken heart. Anita, on the other hand, was torn between her love for Peter and her desire to repair her relationship with her daughter. She couldn't help but feel guilty for falling in love with the man Praise has once loved. But at the same time, she knew that what she had with Peter was real. She couldn't deny it. But even as the situation grew more complicated, Anita and Peter's love continued to grow. They were determined to make their relationship work, even though it meant facing the harsh reality that Praise might never accept it. Anita's pregnancy was another hurdle. She had been nervous about how Praise would react to the news. Would she be able to handle it? Would she ever be able to see Peter as more than just her ex-boyfriend? The questions weighed heavily on her heart. Peter knew that he had to do something to make things right with Praise, but he didn't know where to start. His love for Anita was real, and he couldn't change that. But deep down, he still cared about Praise. He had once promised to make her happy, and he couldn't forget that promise. But what was the right thing to do now? Could he repair the damage he had caused? Or had their love story ended for good? Peter couldn't shake the guilt that weighed on his heart. Every time he thought about Praise, the memories flooded back. How they used to laugh together, how they dreamed about their future. He remembered the excitement in her eyes when they first spoke about marriage, the joy in her voice as she said, "We will build a life together, Peter." Those words echoed in his mind now, a painful reminder of how everything had fallen apart. He sat alone in his room, the silence pressing down on him. His phone buzzed, breaking the quiet. It was a message from Anita. "Peter, I know this is hard, but we need to face this together. The baby is coming soon. We can't let the past ruin what we have now." Peter sighed deeply and typed back, "I am trying, Anita, but the guilt. I don't know if I can face Praise again. I hurt her so much." There was a long pause before Anita responded. "We both need to be strong. Praise is hurting, but so are we. This isn't easy, but we have to find a way forward. For us and for the baby." Peter stared at the message, his heart heavy. He knew she was right, but the question still lingered. How could he fix what was broken? Meanwhile, Praise was struggling with her own turmoil. She couldn't understand what had happened. How had everything she thought she knew about love turned upside down? Her mother and Peter, two people she trusted most, had betrayed her in the worst possible way. She spent long hours in her room, staring out the window at the busy streets of Lagos, her mind racing with confusion. Sometimes she felt like screaming, but even then, it wouldn't change anything. Her mother was pregnant with Peter's child, and no matter how much she tried to convince herself that it didn't matter, the truth kept stabbing at her. She tried to stay busy, to distract herself from the pain, but everywhere she went, people whispered. They all knew about her mother and Peter. The news had spread like wildfire and Praise couldn't escape it. One afternoon, Praise found herself at a cafe with Chika, the woman Peter had dated after their breakup. Praise hadn't spoken to Chika in a while, but she knew that Chika too had suffered because of Peter. "Praise, I know you are angry, and I can't imagine how hurt you must feel. But you need to understand that Peter didn't do this to hurt you," Chika said gently as they sat across from each other. Praise shook her head, her eyes brimming with tears. "How am I supposed to believe that? He was supposed to be my future. Chika, now he's with my mom, my mother. How am I supposed to forgive him for that?" Chika sighed, her gaze softening. I know it's hard. But the heart wants what it wants. Peter never meant for any of this to happen. He's a good man, and maybe, just maybe, he was meant to be with your mother. Praise froze. "No, you can't be serious. My mother? I know it sounds impossible, but look at it this way. Life doesn't always follow a plan. Sometimes it's messy. Sometimes people fall in love where they least expect it. I am not saying you should just forget everything, but don't close your heart completely. You deserve happiness too, Praise." Praise stared at her, trying to process the words. She didn't want to hear it. She didn't want to forgive Peter, and she didn't want to understand. She was just too hurt. "I don't know if I can forgive him," Praise said quietly, staring into her coffee. "Or if I can forgive her." Back at Anita's house, the tension was thick. Peter knew he couldn't run from his past forever. He couldn't let it control him, not when there was so much at stake. His future with Anita, their child. But the guilt was unbearable. Anita walked into the living room, her face serious. "Peter, we can't keep hiding. We have to face the music. Praise deserves to know the truth. We can't keep pretending that everything is okay." Peter nodded. "I know, Anita. But what if she hates me? What if she never forgives me? She will need time," Anita said, sitting beside him. "But we will be there for her when she's ready. We can't force it. I just wish things were different." Anita smiled softly, her eyes filled with understanding. "Me too. But sometimes life gives us challenges we don't expect. What matters now is that we face them with strength and love, together. A week passed and Peter made up his mind. He knew that if he wanted to heal the wounds with praise, he had to face her. Even if it meant risking everything, he had to explain himself, and he had to do it soon. That evening, Peter drove to Praise's apartment, his hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. He wasn't sure what to expect. Would she scream at him? Would she slap him in the face, or worse, tell him to leave forever? When he arrived, he saw her standing outside, her eyes red from crying. She was holding her phone in her hand, looking lost in thought. "Praise!" Peter called softly, stepping out of the car. She turned slowly, her face hardening when she saw him. "What do you want?" Peter took a deep breath. "I came to apologize. I've hurt you more than you know, but I need you to understand. I never meant to cause you pain." Praise's eyes filled with tears, but she quickly wiped them away. "You've caused me more pain, more than anyone ever has, Peter. You were my everything, and now I don't know who you are anymore." "I am still the same person, Praise. I am just trying to figure this out too," he said, his voice trembling. "I never expected things to turn out this way, but I want you to know, what I have with your mom, what's growing between us, it's real. I didn't plan for this, but it's happened." Praise took a step back, her hands shaking. "I don't want to hear this. I don't want to know about your relationship with her. It's too much to handle." Peter looked at her with regrets. "I am sorry, Praise. I am so sorry. But I will always care about you. Always." Praise turned and walked away, leaving Peter standing alone in the dark.
Through the sands and the sun's warm embrace, whispers of tales that time cannot erase. A duggo sings where the rivers roam. Stories of wonder will call you home. From the drum beats loud to the stars so bright, her voice rises bold in the heart